Hello, Judy Bullymore here. So now I'm going to talk you through how to actually answer the question using the interview story impression technique. So step one is to acknowledge the question with a statement. What this does is it actually provides the interviewer with extra detail, extra information and evidence that you are the best fit for their organisation and the best person for the role. It's something that they haven't asked for, but it's something that they actually expect you to do because they want you to be impressive and they want you to show them why you're the best person for the role. So this is a prompt, particularly to anybody who's not great at selling themselves or doesn't do themselves justice in an interview situation. This is your prompt to showcase the best of you. So by acknowledging the question with a statement, it's giving you a free pass to say something that show your confidence. So if they've asked a question such as, why did you apply for this job? And the job is, I don't know, in teaching, then this allows you to make a statement. So teaching to me isn't simply imparting information to children or to adults, depending on whoever it is that you're teaching. Teaching to me is my calling. It's something that's been in my family for generations. It's something that I don't just feel passionately about. It's something that I've dedicated my career and my life to. And your organisation allows me to really flourish and showcase my teaching ability or something to that effect. A statement can be anything like, I really love something, I'm really good at something, I've been commended for doing this. There's all different ways of making a statement, but it allows you to show your confidence in your abilities, and it allows the interviewer to glean something about you that is more likely to stick in their mind. And it's all in the detail. Sometimes when they've seen lots of people who had similar skills and experience, sometimes it does actually boil down to them going, well, you know, when she said that, or when he talked about that, that really resonated with me. I really could imagine them in our team. I really think that they'd get on with, I don't know, Brenda or Ian in the sales team. You know, when they're making their decisions, they're really trying to work out, can you not only do the job, but are you going to fit in with the culture and all the other stuff that is behind the scenes? So by acknowledging the question and then adding in a really bold, strong, confident statement that's true about your abilities, you've already started really, really strong. So secondly, you go in with the result. Now, the reason why you go in with the result is because an interview, I like to treat an interview almost like a mini performance or a really strong presentation, because there's an art to coming across impressively. And the way to do that is to impress the employers or the interviewers by the words that you use, by the way that you talk about yourself, and, you know, the thing that sets you apart. Now, if you go in secondly with the really strong result, you've got them hooked. They're already engaged. After that, it's just a question of showing them how you did it. How did you achieve this really strong result? Also, by going in with the result, you've already answered the question. You've already said, A, I can do it. The reason why I can do it is because I'm passionate about it. I love it. It's something that I've always been good at. And the reason why I know that I can do it is because I achieved this amazing result. And this is within a few minutes of talking. So go in with a really strong result. And remember, before you actually answered the question, you already had this really strong example in your mind anyway. You've already immersed yourself in how it felt. So it's all fresh in your mind. It's all ready to go. And it will help you now, because if you start with the results, you know after that, once you've said it, all you have to do is explain how you achieved it. So the next step, step 3, when answering the question, is just to set the scene. Now, this is a really useful step because time and time again, people come away from an interview and they feel like they undersold themselves, or they feel like they didn't do their experience and their achievements justice. By setting the scene, as I said in the first section, which was what you do before you answer the question, you control what the interview panel sees, thinks, and hears and feels. So by setting the scene, it's almost like either you could look at it as storytelling, you could look at it as painting a picture, you could look at it as being a director and, you know, setting the movie from whatever frame you want. By setting the scene, you're controlling what that interview panel is going to imagine and what they're going to picture you doing. So setting the scene allows you to share your responsibilities. It allows you to remind them that you held this role and these were your responsibilities. It allows them to understand the context of the example that you're talking through. When you're in an interview, don't ever assume that they know your CV or your application document inside and out. It's very likely they would have looked at it before you've entered the room. But until you talk about your experience, they don't really know how profound it was or what impact it had until you bring it to life. So just to provide a bit of context before, you can say, when I was working as a project manager in this organisation, which is an organisation that's dedicated to, you know, or when I was teaching, I was working in a school that was a struggling school. It had an Ofsted rating of poor. And I started the position and my role was to lead the education department. So when you are setting the scene or when you are setting a bit of context, allow them to picture what you was doing in that role. So then they can go, right, this makes sense. My word, if they achieved that when they started the role and it was poor, and then by the time that they had done that, you know, there was an Ofsted rating of good or outstanding, that allows them to come along with you on the journey of the picture that you're painting about how great you are in a work situation. Hopefully that makes sense. And then finally, it's just about talking about the key things that led to the result. Now, you could do this if the reason why I say an interview is a bit like a mini performance or a presentation. If we go for the presentation analogy, if you've sat in a really dull, boring presentation, which a lot of us have, where it's PowerPoint slide overload, people are just reading out what's on the screen, there's no life to it, there's no personality to it, you've switched off. And then think about those presentations that just hold your attention. And the more that the presenter is talking, the more that you're leaning forward, the more that you're scribbling down your notes, the more that you want to understand what came next. That's a really strong presentation. And that's what you want to achieve in an interview. You want the interviewers to be engaged in what you're saying. So you've already said the result, you've already set the scene. Now it's just about what were the key things that led to the result. When you're thinking about that visual image of achieving that result, there would have been some really key foundations for you to have got there from A to B. That could be talked through by, it could be really one really integral point that you need to talk around that led to the result. It might be 2 things, it might be 3 things. But it allows you to think, okay, I'm on my home stretch with this question. There was 2 really big things that made a difference. I'm going to talk about that. So this is where you trust in your instincts. You trust that you have the examples to prove that you can do the job. All you have to do is just bring them to life in a really positive way. Also, it helps to hold the interviewer's attention, because you can say, well, firstly, what I did was I did this. Secondly, I did that. Finally, I did that. And that is why we all celebrated in that great achievement, because it took a lot of things to get us there, but it worked. We achieved this. This was the result. And then finally, it's just wrapping it up and saying, well, this is why I feel that I can, whatever the question is, because as I've mentioned, not only am I passionate about it, but I have achieved these results. And this is something that I've done in this job as well as my previous positions too. Perhaps that could be an ending. All different ways to end. But hopefully you can see that there is an art to interviews. And even if you just chose to use 2 of the steps of the 4 that I've mentioned, it would be a much stronger answer than simply just answering the question without thinking through all of these things. So hopefully you can see why this might be your competitive edge when it comes to interviews. That I have a free download of the steps for you to look at, as well as the interview training that I provide, which is totally free. It's on my website, and it takes you through not only the steps in a bit more detail, but also the 5 things that interviewers expect, but they don't ask you in the invitation to interview. So it's a really helpful training to help you stand out at interview and make a really strong, lasting impression. So I hope you found that helpful. Okay, bye.